My friends, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever been laughed at for dreaming too big? Have you ever been told, you cannot do it, it's impossible, you are wasting your time? If you have, then you already understand the story I am about to share with you today. Because this is not just the story of rockets or satellites, it is the story of how one nation, once ridiculed by the world, turned doubt into determination and criticism into celebration. For years, powerful voices in the global media painted India's space program as a joke. They said, why build rockets when your people are still poor? Why explore the stars when you still struggle on Earth? But while the world was busy mocking, India was busy working. While critics were writing headlines, Israel's scientists were writing history. And when the results finally came, the same people who once laughed had no choice but to stand in silence. This is not just about India. It is about all of us. It is about every entrepreneur, every student, every dreamer in this room who has been underestimated. Because when you listen to this story, you will see a truth that applies to life, to business, to every dream we carry. People will always doubt you at the beginning, but if you stay focused, if you stay persistent, your success will one day force even your harshest critics to applaud. So today, I invite you to stay with me until the very end of this speech. Because what we are about to explore is not just how Israel silenced the BBC, but how ordinary people with extraordinary determination can change the story of a nation and inspire the world. And by the time we finish, you will not only understand this journey, you will feel ready to write your own. When we look at the way India's space program has been treated by international media, particularly the BBC, we see a long history of skepticism and even mockery. For years, the narrative painted by such outlets was that a developing nation like India had no business investing in rockets and satellites, while millions of its people were struggling with poverty, malnutrition, and unemployment. The argument was framed as a moral question. How could a country justify spending billions on space technology when basic human needs were not being met? Headlines often carried undertones of ridicule, suggesting that India's scientific ambitions were misplaced dreams rather than strategic investments. Images of cows walking near rocket launch pads or street-level poverty juxtaposed against satellites became a recurring theme in their coverage. The message was clear. India was being told that its aspirations to compete in advanced science and technology were unrealistic, even laughable, for a nation still classified as developing. And this criticism, however, missed a deeper truth. For India's space exploration was never just about prestige or catching up with Western powers. It was about self-reliance, national pride, and building technology that could directly benefit its people. Weather satellites were designed to predict monsoons, saving millions of farmers from crop failures. Communication satellites connected remote villages that had been left behind for decades. Navigation systems reduced dependence on foreign powers and protected national security. The visionaries at the Indian Space Research Organization understood that space technology could be a catalyst for development rather than a distraction from it. Yet, the BBC and similar voices continue to project the story through a narrow lens, framing India's ambition as reckless spending. This negative portrayal had an impact especially on international perception. Investors, policymakers, and global audiences consumed these narratives and often underestimated India's scientific community. The ridicule was not only about budgets, but also about capability. The underlying assumption was that sophisticated achievements in space belonged only to the West, not to a nation still struggling with its economic challenges. In this way, media skepticism reinforced a kind of intellectual hierarchy, where India's efforts were measured against Western standards and found unworthy. And despite these criticisms, Israel pressed forward with determination, lightly ignoring the noise. What makes this story powerful is not that India responded with words, but with results. Every launch, every satellite, every mission that succeeded became a quiet yet firm rebuttal to those headlines. The silence of BBC in later years was not because they stopped reporting, but because the achievements became undeniable. When critics around the world doubted India's ability to build a successful space program, ISRO responded not with arguments, but with innovation that redefined the economics of space exploration. What set ISRO apart was its extraordinary ability to do more with less, to achieve world-class results at a fraction of the cost that other agencies like NASA or ESA were spending. The most striking example was the Mars orbiter mission, Mangalyaan, launched in 2013. India not only became the first Asian nation to reach Mars orbit, but also did so on its very first attempt, something even the United States and Russia had failed at initially. The mission cost roughly $74 million, less than the budget of many Hollywood movies. That single achievement silenced many skeptics and forced the world to look at India differently. This culture of frugal innovation was not born out of choice, but necessity. India never had the luxury of massive budgets like the United States or Russia. Scientists had to find creative solutions, often improvising with limited resources. Engineers reused designs, cut unnecessary costs, and adopted a minimum expenditure, maximum output philosophy. Even the launch vehicles were developed incrementally, each step building on the lessons of the previous one. For every mission, ISRO's teams worked under immense pressure, knowing that a failure would be used as validation of the critics' doubts. Yet, they turned these constraints into strengths. By designing smaller, efficient spacecraft, they proved that success did not always require massive spending, but rather clarity of vision and meticulous execution. This consistent record of achieving ambitious goals at low cost gradually built ISRO's reputation as the master of affordable space technology. It was not just about India proving itself to the world, but also about offering global services. ISRO began to provide cost-efficient satellite launches for other countries, including European and Asian nations, making India a preferred partner for those who could not afford expensive launches from NASA or ESA. What had once been marked as a poor country's misplaced ambition transformed into a credible alternative in the global space industry. Every successful mission became a direct response to years of doubt and condescension. Each innovation demonstrated that India's strength lay not in outspending others, but in outthinking them. Over time, even critical outlets like the BBC had to acknowledge that these achievements were not accidents, but the result of a deeply capable and resilient scientific community that had mastered the art of doing the impossible with limited means. The moment that truly shifted global perception of India's space program came in 2023, when ISRO achieved what no other nation had managed before, landing a spacecraft on the moon's south pole. This was not just another scientific milestone, it was a defining achievement in human exploration. The Chandrayaan-3 mission carried enormous weight, not only because of its technical difficulty, but also because of the symbolic value it carried for India. After decades of being doubted, questioned, and even ridiculed by international media, here was a mission that left no room for skepticism. The world had to admit that India was now a serious contender in the global space race. The South Pole of the Moon had always been a region of great interest, but also immense challenge. Its rough terrain, deep craters, and permanent shadows made it extremely difficult to land safely. No other nation had succeeded there, not even the United States, Russia, or China. Yet Israel managed to design, test, and execute a landing with precision that stunned the global scientific community. When the Vikram lander touched down successfully, India not only joined the elite club of nations capable of soft lunar landings, but also became the first to conquer this unexplored region. The symbolic power of that success was immense because it demonstrated not just technology ability, but also courage to aim where others hesitated. The media reaction was telling. Outlets like the BBC, which had once mocked India's space ambitions, were forced to headline India's triumph with admiration rather than skepticism. For decades, India had been portrayed as a nation punching above its weight, but with Chandrayaan-3, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, what was once ridiculed as ambition became respected as achievement. The world could no longer ignore that a country often described in terms of poverty and underdevelopment had achieved something even the most advanced economies had not. This mission also resonated deeply within India itself. It inspired millions of young students, scientists, and innovators who saw in ISRO's success a reflection of their own potential. For a nation long defined by colonial narratives and external judgments, the landing on the moon's south pole became a declaration of self-confidence. It was proof that India did not need validation from anyone because results spoke louder than criticism. The silence of doubters and the admiration that followed marked a turning point, one where India's space program transitioned from being underestimated to being celebrated on the world stage. The rise of ISRO is not just a story of technology and missions, it is equally a story of the visionary individuals who shaped its journey. From the very beginning, the foundation was laid by Vikram Sarabhai, the father of India's space program. At a time when India was newly independent and struggling with economic hardships, Sarabhai dared to dream of a space program that would directly benefit ordinary people. He was not driven by competition with the West, but by a belief that satellites could transform education, communication, and weather forecasting in India. His vision gave ISRO its unique purpose, one that distinguished it from other space agencies focused mainly on prestige or military power. After Sarabhai, it was Satish Dhawan who carried the institution forward. Dhawan was not only a brilliant scientist, but also a builder of institutions. He emphasized discipline, long-term planning, and nurturing young talent. Under his leadership, ISRO established a culture of teamwork and resilience that would define its working style for decades. Dhawan was the one who insisted that failures should never discourage scientists, but instead be treated as stepping stones. His calm leadership during setbacks ensured that the organization stayed united and focused. Abdul Kalam, perhaps the most popular figure associated with India's space and missile programs, brought unmatched energy and charisma to the field. Known as the Missile Man of India, he worked on critical satellite launch vehicle projects and later became a beloved president of India. Kalam's ability to inspire ordinary citizens, especially the youth, made him a symbol of scientific progress in India. His popularity extended far beyond the scientific community, making him a household name and giving ISRO a human face that people admired and trusted. In later years, leaders like Kesavan played a critical role in modernizing ISRO and expanding its international presence. Sivan became widely recognized during the Chandrayaan-2 mission, and though that attempt faced difficulties, his emotional response won the hearts of millions, showing the human side of science. Today, Somanath stands as the face of ISRO's most recent triumphs, including the Chandrayaan-3 success. His calm confidence and leadership have made him one of the most popular contemporary figures in India's scientific community. Each of these individuals contributed not only to ISRO's technical progress, but also to its image at home and abroad. Some, like Abdul Kalam, achieved global recognition, while others, like Somanath, are rising in prominence with recent successes. But together, they form the backbone of a story that turns skepticism into respect. When ISRO achieved the historic landing of Chandrayaan-3 on the moon's south pole, the global narrative around India's space program shifted dramatically. For decades, India had been portrayed by many Western outlets, particularly the BBC, as a country whose ambitions in space were misplaced and impractical. Their coverage often carried undertones of doubt and sarcasm, questioning why a nation with poverty challenges would pour resources into rockets and satellites. But when India accomplished what no other nation had achieved, that skepticism collapsed almost overnight. The very platforms that once ridiculed India's space dreams were now compelled to headline its success with admiration. The BBC, which had earlier framed India's space program as a contradiction to its development challenges, found itself acknowledging the magnitude of Chandrayaan-3's achievement. The tone of coverage changed from skepticism to respect, as even critics could not deny the historic significance of the mission. This transformation was not the result of any public relations campaign or defensive response from India. It was the undeniable power of result when the world saw that India had become the first nation to master the moon's most difficult landing region. The early mockery sounded outdated and hollow. The mission itself became the answer to years of doubt, and silence became the only option for those who had underestimated ISRO. This shift in narrative extended beyond the BBC to many other global outlets as well. Publications across Europe, the United States, and Asia highlighted India's achievement as a defining moment in space history. Instead of questioning India's right to invest in science, commentators began discussing how other nations could learn from ISRO's model of cost-effective innovation. What was once dismissed as a poor nation's misplaced ambition was now celebrated as a pioneering breakthrough. The ridicule turned into applause, and the silence of critics was replaced by recognition of India as a leader in the future of space exploration. The power of this transformation lies in the fact that it was not words but actions that changed the story. For years, the narrative had been controlled by external voices that measured India by its weaknesses. Chandrayaan-3 allowed India to reclaim that narrative through undeniable success. BBC's coverage became symbolic of this broader shift. An organization once skeptical, now forced to recognize that India's space program had earned its place among the world's best. The story of doubt turning into admiration reveals how persistence and achievement can silence even the loudest critics. The success of ISRO's missions has gone far beyond the scientific community, shaping the way India is perceived on the global stage. For decades, India was viewed largely through the lens of its poverty, population, and developmental struggles, with little acknowledgement of its scientific or technological capabilities. The achievements of ISRO have changed that perception, showing the world that India is not just a nation of challenges, but also a nation of solutions. By delivering complex missions at a fraction of the global cost, India has positioned itself as a credible and reliable player in one of the most advanced industries in the world. This transformation has had a profound impact on how Europe, the United States, and other major powers approach India in science, trade, and diplomacy. One of the clearest outcomes of ISRO's progress has been the demand for its affordable satellite launch services. Countries that cannot afford expensive launch programs have turned to India as a trusted partner. From launching commercial satellites for European companies to assisting developing nations with their first space missions, ISRO has built a reputation as the go-to agency for cost-affordable, reliable services. This not only generates economic value, but also builds diplomatic goodwill, making India a strategic partner for many nations. It has expanded India's soft power in ways that few expected when the program first began. Beyond launches, the symbolic value of ISRO's achievements has enhanced India's image as a rising global power. The moon landing of Chandrayaan-3, for example, positioned India at the cutting edge of exploration. Suddenly, conversations that once dismissed India's space program as unnecessary began acknowledging it as a model of efficiency and resilience. The broader narrative shifted from questioning why India was investing in space to recognizing how India was pioneering a new, fruitful approach that others could learn from. This changing image also inspired pride within India, fueling a sense of confidence and self-belief that resonates across its population, particularly among the youth. A nation that was often made to feel like a follower in global science and technology is now being seen as a leader. Western media, including outlets like the BBC, were compelled to cover India's achievements, not as curiosities, but as legitimate breakthroughs. The global impact of ISRO's success has been to redefine India's identity, from a nation criticized for chasing unrealistic ambitions to one respected for setting new benchmarks in space exploration and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look back on this journey, the story of ISRO is not just about rockets, satellites, or landing on the moon. It is about vision in the face of doubt, resilience in the face of ridicule, and achievement in the face of impossibility. For years, India's space program was underestimated, laughed at, and portrayed as misplaced ambition. Yet, with every mission, with every breakthrough, ISRO answered not with words, but with results. From the vision of pioneers like Vikram Sarabhai and Peter Abdul Kalam to the determination of leaders like Sivan and S. Somanath, India transformed criticism into celebration and disbelief into admiration. What began as a target of skepticism has now become a symbol of pride and inspiration not only for India, but for the entire world. The silence of those who once mocked has been replaced by applause, and that is the most powerful victory of all. It reminds us that true strength does not lie in arguing with your critics, but in proving them wrong through action. So, as we conclude, let us carry this message with us. No matter how small you start, no matter how loudly others doubt you, your work, your persistence, and your results will always speak louder than their criticism. This is not just ISRO's story. It is a story for every individual, every nation, and every dreamer who dares to rise above limitations. Good luck to all of you in your own journeys of discovery and achievement. May you find the same courage to silence your doubts and inspire the world with your success. Thank you.